Hey everyone, it's Meesha at RedTree. Something we get asked a lot is, do I take my current site and try to iterate and make changes, or do I completely blow it up and start from scratch? So there's a couple of things that we're going to go through today that might help you easily answer some of those questions. First and foremost, I will say, if you are not using ChatGPT to help you create visual graphics that convey a point, I would highly suggest. I asked ChatGPT to create a iterate versus blow up, and it came up with this, which I was quite impressed with, but not the point of this video. So let's go into a couple of things before we start looking into some considerations. First of all, I would take a little bit of time to understand your current site. Now, first thing to look at is your brand evolution. Has your brand evolved so much throughout the months, that when you look at your site, there's so many things that need to be changed that, is above just messaging. It's messaging visuals. It's overall sort of user experience to get someone to where it is that they would need. That's something to really look at. The next thing to look at is a dated design. Now, a lot of people will say, my site is very dated, so I should blow it up and start from scratch. Not necessarily at times. What I like to tell people is, think about those DIY dresser videos that we see on social media. Sometimes those individual pieces of furniture have really good foundations, and people sort of wipe away the coatings or update some finishes or whatever that may actually be. Now, that does predicate on the fact that you have to have a good foundation. And back to the website, you will definitely have to look at, does your site's foundation have enough capabilities that you could sort of update the design around it? The next thing to look at is what we refer to as our tech stack. Now, the World Wide Web has evolved thanks to a lot of these devices, thanks to a lot of just technology. So looking at your individual tech stack, is it mobile friendly? What's the load speed looking like? How dated is the code? Are you utilizing a platform such as WordPress or Shopify that is, responsible for constantly updating a lot of those codes? Or have you built a lot of that yourself, and it might end up being very deprecated just in the nature of the evolution of code? So those are the three things to really look at and understand before you even look at any kind of a considerations. So let's go into two considerations of when you should iterate. Now, we talked a little bit about this during the tech stack, but the biggest thing to take into consideration is your overall foundation. Is it well constructed? Is your site have a lot of built-in components for UI, UX, and SEO best practices? Again, are you using something like WordPress? Are you using something like Shopify that has some of those pre-built-in back-end components that might be enough of a foundation where you can start to iterate the designs? Last thing is going to be your brand. Now, is your brand alignment and the overall conversion, does it need to be reflected a little bit differently? How far off is it? Is it just a overall, visual component, but maybe some of the other messaging is there? Those are some of the two biggest considerations whenever it comes to iterating. Now, let's look at an actual example. So let's look at Bally Design. Bally Design came to us and said that their current site, although very technically sound because they had just done a refresh within the last year, they really didn't feel that it conveyed their brand. Their previous site was relatively dark and a little heavy, and also they contribute their brand differentiator as they speak design. They know design. This is what they do. And the current site didn't really showcase a lot of the work that they were doing. So in an iterative process, we took their current homepage and updated it slightly to not only have a feature of their individual services, but also showcased the pieces associated with that service. and then incorporate a lot more whites and bright color. So let's look at 2 considerations when you should start over. Talked about this a lot, but your technology is usually the immediate go-to. If you have very antiquated technology, if the code hasn't been updated in several years, you're looking at a lot of security vulnerabilities. You're looking at probably a lot of things like it's not mobile friendly. It doesn't allow for responsive design. It doesn't even have a lot of built-in technical SEO, such as schema, header markups, or even alt tags. And a lot of these things are security issues are security issues, but in order to get to the next phase of what your business wants to do, and in order to just meet your users where they are, you need to have certain things built in, like mobile design and certain technical SEO. So if your technology is pretty antiquated, this is an immediate, let's just start over and build again. The other component to look at is scalability. Does your current platform or solution allow you to scale to what you're thinking is your step 4, 5, 6? Does it allow you to build in a resource center? Does it allow you to have a robust blog, built out landing pages, drive a lot of traffic, track a lot of that traffic and what they're doing? Now let's look at another case study. This is True Summit Solutions. They're a Salesforce implementation agency. On the left-hand side is their old site, and on the right-hand side is their new site. So the old site, although relatively technical sound and also mobile friendly, there was a lot of things that they wanted to do as a part of their new brand, as their brand refresh, if you will, as their brand positioning, as their brand had evolved, that they couldn't do inside of their existing solution. So they wanted to build out a more robust resource center. They wanted to build out a more extensive case studies. They wanted to build out landing pages. They wanted to drive more traffic in order to capture a lot of those traffic. They also really wanted to double down in this new visual elements of the summit, mountain, trees, going more iconic versus photo heavy. So at that moment in time, it just made more sense to blow up and get them into something that's going to take them to step 4, 5, and 6. Now, in summary, making your decision, I would say to focus on 3 individual things. Number 1 is going to be your brand. Where is your brand now? Where is your website with where your brand is now? If it is something that can be slowly evolved and the current site is fitting well, then maybe that doesn't take into consideration. But if you have a whole new brand visual, you have a whole new messaging, you have a whole new aspirations of thought leadership, then that might be a good warrant of blowing up and starting from scratch. The other one is technology. So plain and simply, back to the dresser example, if you're missing a whole side, you're missing a leg, some of the wood is rotting away, then that's a point in time to just sort of demolish and start from scratch. And the last thing is just going to be your overall goals, right? So what are your long-term brand strategy goals? Does your current site help you achieve those goals, or would starting from scratch help you to achieve those goals faster? There's lots of things that we talked about today, and there's a lot of different iterations. And this is a very simplified considerations to what could be a very complex conversation. So if anyone out there has any questions or concerns, we're here. We're happy to talk about which one's going to be best for you and your brand to iterate or to blow up. Happy Thursday, everyone.